Good morning, class. Welcome back to reading. Today we're going to read chapter 4 of Belle, Teal. I hope you guys are starting to like this book. This is one of my favorite books to read. It is a little sad because of some of the things that actually happen in the book because it's based on a true story, even though this book is fiction. But we did hear about the Little Rock Nine from some of our classmates who presented their PowerPoints. But I love this book because there are a lot of great lifelong experiences and words that are used about being positive and how hate creates hate and you shouldn't hate. So it is one of my favorite books. I do hope you guys like it or do start to enjoy it as we read. Okay, so grab your books and pretend we're back in class sitting at our reading table and you're listening to me read. Okay, we are on page 34. Here we go, chapter 4. Daryl, say good morning to your teacher. Mrs. Craig nudges him toward Miss Casey. Daryl sticks out his hand. Good morning, ma'am, he says, solemn-like. Pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet you, replies Miss Casey. She turns on that beautiful smile again as she bends over to shake his hand. Then she leaves Daryl standing at the front of our classroom as she leads Mrs. Craig toward the door. The grown-ups talk for a couple of minutes, but I can't hear what they're saying. Mrs. Craig, she looks dead scared, though, and I don't blame her a bit. Miss Casey places her hand on Mrs. Craig's arm while she talks to her, and soon I see Mrs. Craig's eyes soften. Meanwhile, Daryl, he just stands there staring down at his feet. From the back row, I hear whispering and snickering, and Vanessa turns to look at Daryl that is so hateful, I can almost feel poison shooting at her eyes. I flash her a mean glare at my own, and what does she do but look straight at me and smile another, one of her fake smiles. Miss Casey turns around, the snickering stops. Mrs. Craig says, I'll be back at the end of the day, Daryl, and she walks out of the room. Her back straight, her head high. Miss Casey shows Daryl to the only empty desk in the room. I don't know how she manages it, but she is pulling out his chair for him. She also turns and sweeps her eyes around the room, glancing at every single one of us, sending out a warm warning about snickering and poison eye looks. Now, little boss, he's in a rare bad form, because what does he do as soon as Miss Casey's back is toward him, but make a great show of hauling his desk away from Daryl's. He pushes it so hard, he barely bangs into the back of poor Stephen Haynes, who will cry at the drop of a hat, but fortunately this time does nothing. Chaz, who's on the other side of Little Boss's desk, starts brushing off his sleeves like Daryl has somehow left cooties on Chase's shirt just by moving the air in the room. Vernon, meanwhile, has been working away at a drawing of a person with black skin and enormous lips. He holds it up for us to see, but by now Miss Casey has reached her desk again, and as she turns to face us, Vernon shoves the picture under his notebook. Good morning, class, says Miss Casey brightly. Now that we're all here, I want to greet you officially. Ray Stomper, please move your desk to its original position. Welcome to 5th grade, Miss Casey continues cheerfully, not even watching Little Boss as he edges his desk reluctantly back toward Daryl's. I think we're going to have an exciting year. That, Miss Casey. She doesn't miss a trick. She probably knows about Vernon's picture, too. I gaze at her pearls and her dress and her perfect chestnut-colored hair, and just drink in the sight of her as she leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and takes our milk orders. As she is walking around the room a few minutes later, telling us what all we're going to be learning this year, she lifts up Vernon's notebook, removes the picture, and carries it to her desk, where she leaves it wrong side up on top of a pile of papers. I myself would have been both humiliated and dumbfounded, but Vernon, he turns to Chase and just shakes his head in disgust. After Miss Casey finishes telling us about the American history and fractions and tall tales and mammals we'll be learning about, now, she says, now, class, I'm going to assign permanent seats to you. I hear a few quiet groans and Vanessa Mathers puts her hand primly in the air. Ma'am, what if somebody likes the seat she has already chosen, she asks. I hope she will like the new seat just as well, replies Miss Casey. I have studied this and given it a lot of thought and decided that the new seating arrangement will be for the best. I realize that Miss Casey has been busy over the summer. One thing, she must have learned a lot about her students. Otherwise, how would she know who Little Boss is? Then I realized that Miss Casey didn't even need to take attendance. I feel a thrill when I think that Miss Casey has been studying up on me in her free time. Miss Casey, she starts walking around the room. As she passes each desk, she taps it and says the name of the person she wants to sit at it. When she is finished, Clarice is in the row behind me, which is a shame, but Vanessa is clear on the other side of the room, so that's good. And I am kind of in the front, in the second row, but not opposite Miss Casey's desk anymore. I really wanted to continue to observe her up close and to be able to look at all the things on her desk, to see if she has a rubber band ball, to see what condition her eraser is in, probably not chewed on like mine, or maybe she hasn't any interesting trinkets. Little Boss Chase and Vernon have been separated, and now only Chase is in the back row. Miss Casey has placed Daryl in the seat where Clarice just was, right up against the front of her desk. He's in between Vanessa, whose desk is at the end by the window, and May Bender, who's in the seat I wanted. A full row separates him from Little Boss and Vernon, and 2 rows separate him from Chase. I decide Miss Casey has been studying us very hard and is smart in addition to being beautiful and smelling good. Now I am watching Vanessa, who has slid her chair as far away from Daryl as possible. I guess she knows better than to move her desk, like Little Boss did. And again, I'm remembering Mama saying to be nice to the colored children. That Vanessa, she certainly is one for judging. I'm beginning to think her insides aren't so different from Chase and Vernon's insides, even though their outsides are mighty different. Mama's words make more and more sense. Girls and boys, says Miss Casey, breaking into my thoughts. We have 2 new students in our class this year. Their names are Vanessa Mathers and Daryl Craig. I want you to make them feel at home. And Vanessa and Daryl, I'd like you to come up here and tell us a few things about yourselves. Who will go first? Vanessa shoots her arm in the air and wiggles her fingers around. Miss Casey looks at Daryl, but he is sitting with his hands folded on top of his desk, staring at the back blackboard. Very well, Vanessa, she says, pointing to the spot under the American flag. Vanessa slides out of her seat like a graceful swan and stands before us. Miss Casey stands next to her and puts her arm around her, which makes me jealous. Bonjour, Miss Ems, begins Vanessa, looking out at our class. In case you don't know, that's French. French for hello, my friends. Who does she think she is? The queen, whispers Junie Patridge, who is sitting next to me. Vanessa waves one hand in the air, queen-like, and says, I hail from Mechanismville. I lived my entire life there. I have a younger brother named Prince Haroldom, Junior supplies in a whisper only I can hear. Joseph Crew Mathers, and my full name is Vanessa Amy Wanda Mathers. I am named for my beautiful mama. My daddy manages the grain company in Mechanismville. It is a very important job. We hope to be happy here in the little town of Coker Creek. I am sure I am going to enjoy being a student at Coker Creek Elementary. Merci, Bikup, and s'il vous plaît. Feel free to sit with me for dinner this afternoon. Thank you, Vanessa, says Miss Casey. She looks out at the rest of us, and I suddenly feel small and plain. Does anybody have any questions for Vanessa? I imagine that I have eyes in the back of my head, and they are looking at Clarice in the row behind me, sending her a message about stuck-up French-speaking goody-goodies with fancy names and airs. I don't turn around, though. I am determined to get off on the right foot in 5th grade, but how I wish I could speak French in order to impress Miss Casey. I can't tell, though, if Miss Casey is impressed with the French words. She is simply waiting for somebody to ask a question. May Bender's arms flies up. Where did you learn to speak French? How have you been to France? To Paris. Well, twice, adds Vanessa. My lands, I think that she really does sound like the Queen, Queen Vanessa, Her Royal Highness, HRH, Vanessa Mathers. Next, pony little Stephen Hines puts his hand up. Where else have you traveled? He asks this almost in the whisper. Oh, to London and Rome, all over Europe, really. May's hand is in the air again. Will you sit with me and Kayla for lunch today? She asks, all eager. Well, why, certainly. I would be delighted to join you, replies HRH. May sends a big, satisfied grin over to Kayla, who's sitting in front of me. This time, I cannot help myself. I swerve around and peer at Clarice. I believe my mouth is actually hanging open with my disbelief. Clarice, she is looking back at me and her forehead is arranged in a frown. I don't want Miss Casey to catch us, though, so I fix my attention on HRH like she's a fascinating worm under a magnifying glass. Thank you, says Miss Casey. When the questions have died down, that was very interesting. She indicated that Vanessa should take her seat. Then she looks at Daryl. Are you ready? She asks him gently, and she points to that spot under the flag. Vanessa, she is still on her way back to her seat, and when Daryl stands up, she leaps aside to escape him. Miss Casey sees this, but she doesn't comment on it. She just waits until Daryl is standing beside her, then puts her arm around his shoulders like she did Vanessa's and smiles at him. Well, begins Daryl in a soft voice. My name is Daryl Isaac Craig, and I live with my mother and my father. My father is a machinist, and he works nights, and my mother works at the hospital in Mechanismville. My aunt and uncle live next door to us. Daryl looks up at Miss Casey. She nods. Well, I'm 10 years old, and I used to go to school in PPAC. He pauses. That's all. Our classroom is absolutely silent. I don't know which is worse, that awful snickering from before, or the silence that is so big and heavy you could pick up and throw it out around the room. Miss Casey, she gives us a prompt. Does anyone have a question for Daryl? The silence grows. Actually, I have several questions for Daryl. I want to know, what is a machinist? And I wonder if I wonder, is he really another only child like me? And is the hospital his mother works at Baptist Memorial? Because that is where I have my appendix out 3 years ago, and maybe I met her there. But no hands are shooting into the air, so I leave mine resting in my desk, fiddling with an old crayon I had just found in the back. Miss Casey is looking uncomfortable herself, or maybe a little mad. Finally, she says, Daryl, I have a question for you. What do you like to do in your spare time? Ma'am, I like drawing mostly. Drawing, wonderful. Perhaps you will become our class artist. Our room is as still as midnight. After looking out at our silent faces, Miss Casey, she finally says, Class, I hope you will make Daryl feel welcome, which I noticed she did not feel the necessariness of saying after Vanessa finished talking. Miss Casey gazes long and hard at us, but her eyes linger on Little Boss, Chase, and Vernon. Okay, class, that is the end of chapter 4. So now I want to just go over some of the questions you're going to have to answer for today. Okay, so the first question I'm asking you is, what does Little Boss do with his desk? And why do you think he does that? So in the beginning of the chapter, when Miss Casey welcomes Daryl into the class, Little Boss does something with his desk. What does he do? And why do you think he does that? The second question that you're going to have to answer for me today is, why do you think Miss Casey gave the class permanent seats? Why do you think Miss Casey did that? A lot of times when you're in school, you are given seats and assigned seats, but why do you think she gave permanent seats? So that means permanent is she's probably never going to change them all school year. So think about that. The third question, boys and girls, is how do you think Daryl felt having to talk about himself in front of the class? Put yourself in his shoes and how would you feel? So I want you to think, boys and girls, about Daryl had to get up there in front of his class and he had to talk about himself. How do you think he felt? I want you to pretend that you were Daryl. You're brand new to the school. You're a colored child at the time, and you're not really welcomed. And now you have to get up, speak in front of kids you don't even know, and they probably hate you. How do you think he felt? Question 4. Why didn't Belle Teal ask her questions to Daryl? So Belle Teal said that she had a ton of questions to ask him. She wanted to know, what is a machinist? She wanted to know about his mother in the hospital because she got her appendix taken out before. She wanted to know about if he was the only child. Why do you think she didn't ask? And finally, boys and girls, question 5 asks, Miss Casey says, Class, I hope you will make Daryl feel welcome. And then she gazes long and hard at the class, but her eyes linger on Little Boss, Chaz, and Vernon. Why do you think Miss Casey did that? So she tells the class to be nice, and she wants them to make him feel welcome. But she just stops and stares at those 3 boys. Why do you think she does that and lingers directly at them 3? Okay, boys and girls, so after you answer these questions, please make sure you click the submit button. I'm just gonna show my phone on it to make sure that you guys know how to do it. If this is my phone, if this is the computer, this is the submit button that you need to submit. And as soon as you submit it, boys and girls, it goes directly to me. I see who answered, who didn't answer. It's very, very important that you get all of your reading done this week. So to next week, we will be moving on to chapter 5. And this book does get really, really good. It's going to be really hard it's going to be really hard to stop reading. So please please don't continue reading. I need you to stop reading and wait for the class. Otherwise, you're going to be really bored when we have to talk about it and do questions. Okay, so before I go, I might as well show you Lily again. Lily, come here, girl. Come say hi to the 5th grade. Say hi. You want, no? Okay. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend. See you later.